y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today it is only 13 degrees outside, but we are inside, nice, warm, and toasty, and despite my better judgment, I'm going to give dahlias a try again, except I'm going to be starting them from seed. Okay, if any of y'all have been with me for a little while, you know my dahlia journey has been like a nightmare. So I have bought dahlia tubers for many years. I've spent a lot of money. I wouldn't be surprised if I spent over $750 on tubers over the years, whether I bought them from places like Swan Island Dahlias or places like big box stores. And I've tried them in raised beds. I've tried them in my garden bed, and I just have had little to no luck. I've only had luck with one particular area in my garden where I've been able to grow Color Spectacle and Mother's Choice and Palmaris, those three varieties. And I don't think it's necessarily those varieties. I think it's the location in my garden. I never dig them up. They overwinter every year. And 13 degrees today, so maybe not this year, but they do really well right there. But those are the only ones out of maybe 100 plus tubers. So with that in mind, a couple of years ago, I was just so fed up with the amount of money that I spent on dahlias that I started investing in heirloom chrysanthemums instead. And my journey with heirloom chrysanthemums has been spectacular, but that is for another video. Now, also keeping that in mind, I do love dahlias. I think they're beautiful and they're things that I really like to have in my flower arrangements. However, I've just had a hard time growing them. So I thought that I might have a little bit of a different approach this year that is more an investment on time than it is on money. So with that, I'm going to be starting dahlias from seed. Done a lot of research. This will be my first time starting from dahlias from seed. Several of you guys have suggested that I give it a try. So let's talk about the benefits and the not so great benefits of starting dahlias from seed. First is they're pretty easy to start from seed. They do require a heating mat. They need to be about 75 degrees to start from seed. However, you can germinate them out in your soil. Typically, you can direct sow them outside when your temperature and when the soil temperature is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is typically about the time when you'd be putting out like sunflower seeds, just for reference. Starting from dahlias from seed is pretty inexpensive, which is one of the great benefits in my opinion. They are also pretty easy to start. They don't necessarily require light for germination. They just require warmth. They germinate pretty fast in about 7 to 20 days, and they tend to be very large seedlings. So that's something to also consider when you're looking at your space when you're starting dahlias inside. Now, time is a factor in that when I start these seeds right now, it's going to be 3 to 4 months before I see blooms. So that's something to consider when starting from seed germination to actual bloom is at least 3 to 4 months of time. And once you've started dahlias from seed and you grow dahlias outside, and truthfully, even if you have them from tubers or cuttings outside as well, at the end of the season, you can collect seeds and start the whole process over again, never having to buy dahlias again. Now, typically dahlias are considered tender perennials in zones 8 through 10. For other cooler zones from 7 and up or 7 and lower, you're going to need to dig or raise your tubers each season and store them inside at about, I think they say like 50 to 60 degrees over the winter, and then replant them in the spring. I've never had much luck with saving tubers. They either get emaciated, like because they're so dry, or they're too wet and they mold. And truthfully, it's been a disaster each time I've done it, and it's been very stressful. So some of the not so great benefits, but a not so great benefit that I don't really care about is that you never know what variety you're going to get from a dahlia seed because they are from open pollination. So we don't know what other flower pollen that they've been pollinated with. We're not sure. So whatever you're starting from seed, it might say this particular idea or variety, but there's really truly no telling what you end up with. I don't necessarily see that as a detriment. I think that's actually pretty fun. And I actually think that that might take some of the stress off of the situation. When I purchase a tuber and I start that tuber and then it ends up not being the variety that I thought it was, the whole process is very stressful. I feel like I'm out money and it's just a whole thing. So starting from seeds is really more of a surprise, which I kind of think is fun in the garden. Now, if you're not into starting dahlias from seed, you can also grow them from tubers. You can purchase tubers and grow that way. And you can also grow them from propagation. And if these seedlings do really well, I will show a future video on propagating dahlias. Okay, but let's talk about what varieties I'm going to be growing today. Okay, the first set of seeds I got is from Enchanted Dreamer Company, and that is on Etsy. And these seeds are old, at least 2 years old. So I don't know how well these are going to do. These are a pom-pom dahlia mix. It says we're going to sow them about 1/2 inch deep. They should sprout in 7 to 14 days. They're considered tender perennial, and then it talks about digging the tubers up. But a pom-pom dahlia is kind of like a tighter look to a dahlia, and I do love the look of pom-poms. So this will be pretty interesting, giving these a try. I'm probably going to sow multiple of these seeds in each cell since these are older seeds, and typically the older a seed is, the lower the germination rate is. The next two varieties I got from Swallowtail Garden Seeds. The first one is called Double Extreme Dahlia, and these are a dwarf dahlia at 18 to 24 inches. And that is something that I was very interested in that I am going to grow some of the taller dahlias, but I really wanted some short varieties that I can tuck in different places in the garden. These are covered in shapely double and semi-double 4 to 4.5 inch flowers. The blooms are richly colored and include unique sunset shades. Plants flower all summer and are beautiful additions to the beds, borders, and containers. This packet had 30 seeds, and I'll put the price down below. Now, dahlias in my area, when they're all like, oh, they bloom all summer, not so much in my area. When it gets hot, dahlias just stop here. So typically you have to do an earlier jump of the spring and get a bloom cycle at the very end of spring going into the beginning of summer. Then typically they don't bloom much at all during the hottest parts of the summer. And then once we get the end of the summer going into fall, we typically get another round of blooms at that time. So that's going to be different for everybody depending on how hot it is. The dahlias, it just gets too hot in my area for them to produce during the midst of the middle of the summer. Okay, the next variety is also from Swallowtail Garden Seeds, and it is Showpiece Double Mixed Dahlia, which is a blend of improved decorative type dahlias with a high percentage of double 3 to 4 inch blooms held on long, strong stems. They are superb cut flowers. Colors include purple, red, lavender, yellow, carmine, pink, and salmon. The 3 to 4 foot tall plants provide large quantities of rich, radiant flowers for both the border and vase from the midsummer until frost. And this is a packet of 25 seeds. So I have 3 very different varieties, a tall variety, a mid variety, and then the pom-pom variety. 3 very different looking sets of dahlias to try out. So typically you're going to start these seeds about 6 to 8 weeks prior to your last frost. My last frost is mid-March, or my predicted last frost is mid-March. I'm going to go ahead and get these started. I do want to have a nice, robust plant when the time comes to start moving these out. Typically around that last frost time, I will move them out into a portable greenhouse situation where they're getting lots of light, but they're still kept warm. Dahlias definitely don't like cold weather. They will wither and die back during that time. So let's talk about, before we get started seeding all these, let's talk about some things I'm going to do differently with growing dahlias this year in my garden. Obviously, I'm starting them from seed. So I'm starting with way less monetary investment. My investment is going to be time. Secondly, I'm going to start putting these in grow bags. So I'm going to start all the seedlings inside. Once the seedlings are large enough, mature enough, and it's warm enough outside, I'm going to be planting them into grow bags. My theory behind that is that will give me the opportunity to move my dahlias around depending on the weather. So when we are at the hottest times of the year, instead of my dahlias being out in the full sun, baking in 60 days of triple degree temps, I can actually pick up the grow bag and move it back into a shaded area that's maybe part shade, part sun. And that might help the plant either continue to bloom during the summer or give a more robust set of blooms at the end of summer, beginning of fall. Having them in grow bags is also going to allow me to have better drainage. And I think drainage is an issue when I'm planting dahlias because they don't like to be too wet or the tubers will rot. However, they don't like to be too dry or the plants won't grow. it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I feel like dahlias can be such divas in my area. Now I know a lot of zones have no problems growing dahlias. Like it's not an issue at all. And so it's a little bit different for me in zone 8. Now, with that in mind, the grow bags aren't the most attractive, but I'm okay with that. I'm really growing these dahlias mainly for cut flowers. I'm not necessarily growing them to be incorporated as showpieces in my gardens. However, if I have some amazing seedlings that look really great, I might go ahead and transplant them into some portions of the gardens. Most likely, I will choose an area that's part sun, part shade for those dahlias. Okay, with that being said, let's get started sowing those seeds. You guys know the routine. This is my portable soil mat right here. And the soil I'm going to be utilizing is BM7 by Berger. It is my favorite one, and I get it from Homegrown Plants in Farmersville. And I do bring up Homegrown Plants quite frequently. I do want to let you know that I get no discount from them. They give me nothing. They don't ask me to talk about them. I just really, really like that nursery. I feel very comfortable at that nursery. It's not an uppity nursery, if that makes sense. And y'all know, y'all been to some fancy plant nurseries where you feel dumb asking a question. That's not the case at Homegrown Plants. You can ask them any questions, and if they don't know the question, they're going to find somebody who knows the question. And it's filled with just like regular people, which I absolutely love. They have grown so much since, I guess, COVID. They have the space is absolutely beautiful. They have offices there. They have shaded areas for checking out. They have restrooms there. You can actually walk through all of their tunnels and see everything they're growing. The experience is just wonderful, and it's absolutely worth the drive. So let's talk about what I'm going to be using. I'm actually going to be using my Vigo seed starting trays. Now, I invested in these a couple of years ago, and I do like them. I just don't like them as much as my Amazon trays. My Amazon trays were less expensive and more versatile, and that's totally fine. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop using the Vigo trays. It just means I'm not going to be purchasing any additional ones. So I didn't like how I had to purchase everything separately. The seed tray was separate. The cover that goes on top is separate. The water reservoir, so everything's separate. And so I found that a little bit annoying. One thing I do like about the Vigo garden trays is the depth, and that's why I'm actually going to be starting the dahlia seeds here, because dahlia roots don't actually like to be transplanted very often. So I wanted to have a little bit more depth, so a little bit more protection for the roots using these Vigo seedlings than if I was going to start with my Amazon trays. With that being said, it's 8 seedlings, 8 seed cells per container, and it has a lid that goes on top for the humidity dome. And then I'm going to be placing these in my 10 by 20 water reservoirs, and I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes. We're going to just very simply start, and y'all know I like to start with dry soil because it's not as messy. And basically I'm just coming across with the soil just like this, and then I'm using a couple of fingers to kind of gently press down the center part. I'm pulling out any large pieces of bark or anything like that that might obstruct the seeds, and that's pretty much it, starting it. I'm going to probably start 2 seed trays of each variety. I'm excited to try all these. I don't know if I will necessarily need all of these dahlia seedlings, but truthfully, if I don't, I'll end up just either passing them out to some friends or neighbors or sharing with my friend Kristen. I don't know if my friend Kristen is actually going to really like this approach to seed starting for dahlias, because she is very particular in the colors and shapes and textures that she puts in her garden. And like I said before, this is a surprise. So if you're someone that you're like, I only like blues and peaches and pinks in my gardens, I don't want anything else, this might not be the best approach for you, because you could end up with a bazillion different colors. Who knows what you're going to end up with? I actually think that that's a benefit, in my opinion, ending up with lots of different colors. I think it forces me to step out of my comfort zone and try something different. And who knows, I might end up with a beautiful variety that I love, and then maybe I can save that tuber. Probably not, but maybe I can save that tuber. And If I can't save the tuber, I won't feel guilty that I spent $15 on that one tuber and it barely gives me any blooms, and then I'm not able to overwinter it. I mean, I'll feel way less guilt that I only spent a few dollars on some seeds. Okay, so we've got our seed cells to start off with. And let me grab one more thing. We are starting off with the dry soil, which totally works well for me. Why don't we go ahead and start by going ahead and sowing this older variety called the Pom Pom Dahlia Mix. Now, typically these cells are sown at about ½ an inch deep. So I'm just using my little seed dauber to make little holes that I can drop the seeds into. And I want to drop maybe 2 seeds per cell. I'm thinking that. We'll see how many I have left over after doing that. Now, dahlia seeds don't need any kind of special treatment. They don't need to be soaked. They don't need any kind of cold stratification, nothing like that. You can definitely do the paper towel method if you haven't done that before. That's a fun way to start seeds and to make sure that you're working with all seeds that germinate. Whereas the process that I do, I might have some cells that don't germinate at all. All right, so once I've done that, I'm just going to gently push the soil back over. All right, and then we'll go ahead and put a humidity dome. You do want to make sure these are kept moist until they sprout, and I'll show you the final setup at the very end. Okay, you could definitely cover these with vermiculite. I'm not really worried about these since they are sown a little bit deeper. If they were surface sown, I would probably add vermiculite on top to guarantee that they stay moist. Let me show you the next step. Okay, so next I'm going to take a 10 by 20 seed reservoir. And if you don't have these are also on my Amazon storefront. And basically I'm just going to come in and put all of these seed trays, and they fit side by side on here. You can typically do 8, which works really well. So I still have room for 2 more additional different seed trays. So let's fill this with water. Okay, and then I'm just taking regular tap water. And I'm going to fill my tray about halfway up. And these will have no problem soaking up water in a hurry. And you want to definitely keep them moist until they have sprouted. Don't want to let them dry out. I am going to store mine under lights. They don't need lights, but that's just where I'm going to put them for right now. Once they have sprouted, I need to make sure that I remove the humidity domes at that point and that I get these tiny seedlings as far up towards the light as possible. If I have them really far away from the light, like what I did here, I moved these up as far as I could up towards the light. If you have them too far away from the light, then the seedling can become stretched and it's not a good seedling at that point. So for now, we'll just set it up just like that. So being perfectly honest, like I said earlier in the video, I have failed at dahlias so many times over and over again. So I feel like trying them out from seed might be something that would help me out a little bit. I'm not investing a ton of money into this, which is really, really nice. I mean, less than 15 bucks for all those seeds, no problem at all. I am investing time starting them from seeds. Seed starting is not something that's a quick thing. But it also makes me feel that like, if I am able to produce dahlia plants that actually produce flowers and I get like 2 flowers from one plant, I'm kind of like, okay, that works. Better than spending $15 on a tuber and only getting 2 flowers from that tuber. I just feel like this is going to give me a better take on dahlias. I actually, when I did the research on dahlias from seed, I love the look of dahlias from seed. I love the idea of them being surprise. I love the idea that I have no idea what the texture and color scheme is going to be. I think it's wonderful. And so I'm really excited to start this whole process with the dahlia seeds. All right, just making sure we touch base on this. I do need to slip a propagation mat. Let me do that really quick before I forget, because y'all know I'm going to walk away until I forget. The propagation mat that's right here with all my coleus seeds, and I'll actually bring you guys over real quick and show you the coleus seeds because they've all germinated at this point. So I'm just going to slip this propagation or heat mat under here, just like that, and then go ahead and plug that in. It was underneath my my coleus seeds, but they had already germinated, so I had unplugged it. So what we need to know, remember about germinating dahlia seeds, they need to be warm, at least 75 degrees. If your house is 75 degrees, that seems hot, but hey, you're in really good luck and you don't need a germination mat. Mine is not kept at that temperature, so I do need to make sure I have a germination mat. It takes anywhere from 7 to 20 days for these to germinate. I have heard that they germinate way quicker. You have to remember that these seeds are all pollinated differently, so we don't know what varieties have been created. That's why some of them might take longer to germinate. Once I have about 50 to 60% of the seeds germinated in the container, I will go ahead and take the humidity dome off at that point in time to avoid any kind of issues with mold or fungus on the seedlings. Also, once they've germinated, I will go ahead and turn off the heat mat. I won't keep these on the heat mat at that point in time. They really don't need that. These are supposed to be bigger seedlings. And with that in mind, I have a project coming in up in the next week where I'm going to show you how I'm going to install some lights underneath my table right here to actually work as a light station for my larger plants or taller seedlings that I have during the year. Because right now, a lot of these shelves, yes, they work fine, but they're kind of in the way sometimes. And same with my other seed germinating shelf on the side. I'm starting so many new seeds there that the larger seedlings, I need to be able to store them in a different place, at least until I can get a little bit of warmer weather, maybe beginning of March. Go ahead and set a greenhouse up outside, put them in there and know that they're going to be warm in there. So remember, from seed germination to bloom, it's about 3 to 4 months. So if you are wanting to start dahlias from seed, now's the time. Let's go ahead and get started. And for those of you who are in the really colder zones, now's probably a really good time to get started anyway. You might have plants about ready to burst by the time you get around to being able to plant them out in April or May. Okay, I'm super excited about the possibility of the dahlias from seed. Like I said, it's the financial aspect that makes me feel a lot better, that I'm not investing hundreds of dollars for tubers that might not produce very many flowers and that I might not be able to store over the winter. For real, so that's something that's really important to me. And I think this is going to be really fun to show you all this process. Now, let me give you a close-up of some of the other seedlings that I've started before we end the video. So over here are all my petunia seedlings, which are doing amazing since I potted them up to the next level. Everybody's growing big. I am having some that are trying to produce flowers, and when they do that, I'm just coming in and I'm pulling off the bloom because I really don't want them producing flowers at this point in time. Oh goodness, these actually opened. That's tie-dye. Oops. I don't really want them concentrating on making flowers at this point in time. I really need them to just focus on root systems. So I am going ahead and pulling that off. Some of y'all commented how funny it was about the leaves have a little bit of stickiness, so you can actually see some of the fungus gnats on them. They trap their own fungus gnats, which I just think is fabulous. Those are looking really nice. All of these coleus that I grew from propagation are ready to be repropagated into a whole nother set. And that is a project I need to do in the next week or so. Over here are some more of my begonias. Pretty much did not do super great. I've got one there and one there out of this whole set of 12. Over here, I only have 2 that propagated out of this whole set of 12 right here. I have some more over here. This one had a little bit of fungus issues, but I only had 1 propagate there. I actually had 2, but that one died. And then back here, those I ended up having 4. That was the illumination mix, 4 of those. And then over here, I still have begonias that have not sprouted, but remember, they can take forever. So I still have 2 varieties there. This right here is this is my Cleome. It has not sprouted. I just sowed all those. Over here are all my Coleus, and they are germinating like crazy. They did great. So I had almost 100% germination across the board for all varieties, which is super exciting. It's going to be fun to watch those grow. And then, of course, here's the new dahlia seedlings that we started. And then up here is where I have the scabiosa, and this is the baby blue eucalyptus. So those are all up there. They did not need heat mats. And then right here is more propagation by water for my coleus over here. These are ready to be cut and repropagated again. So basically, all of these will turn into two plants, two propagations. So I started with one, and then I grew two stems, and so I'll cut each of those stems and turn them into new propagation. I'm going to have a lot of coleus. I'm so excited. But that'll be an upcoming video where we'll talk more about that. I'll probably wait until my coleus seedlings are a little bit further along so I can give you all an update on that before I go ahead and repropagate all of that other coleus. And I did want to give you a quick update on all the pepper plants and overwintering. They did great. I actually pulled off a jalapeno pepper today. Oh, there's another one. Y'all, it's actually growing jalapeno peppers. I mean, that's great and all of that. I don't really want them to grow right now. I really just want them to focus on roots and staying alive. The goal really is for them to be dormant, but they're all doing really nicely. This guy is starting to get a little bit of something over here, which is nice. So they're all doing really good. And this is actually, the bottom of this table is where I'm going to be installing some upcoming grow lights. I'm going to install them in a way where I don't hurt my table because this is an antique farm table. But I would like to install some grow lights up here so that I can have large scale plants down here, which I think will work out really well. All right, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I'm excited. Seed starting is very exciting. If you want to follow up with updates on my seed or other things that are behind the scenes for my garden and my home, be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And then I've also been trying to post on YouTube community. And then make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. When you like and comment, you are helping grow the channel. It's all you at that point. And so I'd be really appreciative if you would do so. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.